Norma Johnson, Timothy Lesher,
Here.
William May,
Here.
Todd McDaniel, Reed Mills,
Here.
Michael Nichols,
Here.
Danny Simonis, Ron Watts, Chairman Stewart.
Here.
Quorum of 5.
We need a motion to approve the minutes of the January meeting.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I have a small change in the minutes, if we could. Very last paragraph, or paragraphs before last, under the business of the legal fees, the small change is the fees were actually to defend myself and the commission at the direction of the Kentucky League of Cities against false allegations filed by a member of Envision Frankfort, not Envision itself. So,
Formal change. Do we need a motion to, Mr. Logan, do we need to officially make that change?
Well, he is requesting that change, and if you vote on it with that change
Okay.
to approve the
Okay.
minutes.
Okay. We need a.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the minutes with the change.
I'll second.
Any discussion before we vote?
Who seconded?
Oh, Reed did? I saw Mike's.
Okay.
Sorry. No, we both did.
Mr. Lesher,
Yes.
Mr. May,
Yes.
Mr. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Nichols,
Yes.
Chairman Stewart.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Need a motion to approve the payment of the bills.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. May, Reed,
Yeah.
second. Thank you. Any discussion before we vote? Voice vote? All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed vote no. And then staff items they have, first audit presentation by Charles D. Mitchell.
Actually,
I think we're gonna
we're going to reverse, we're
go
going to
Ms.
do.
Perry
Yeah.
first, so we can get that order of business done before Mr. May has to.
Old business first. Let's do old business first, and then Ms. Perry.
Which one?
Do old business first, then Ms. Perry.
Okay.
And we can just do them at the same time. It's the same, yeah.
Okay. Old business, any old business?
Have we heard anything, any update on Tim's issue with the city?
I've spoken
Any
with the city
reimbursements?
attorney and I got a hard no. I reached out to the commission's insurance carrier and asked the question about whether there were riders in those policies that covered such things, and I haven't heard back.
So
I
my
don't know if-
understanding, I was directed by that insurance company to protect this commission and myself. That's why we have legal fees. With regard to our city attorney, regardless of her opinion, this is a liability, and it should go directly to the commission. At least needs to be heard and have them reject it.
Do we need any motion or?
No, I mean, we've already done it.
Yeah.
We've already done it.
Yeah, these two.
Is there any?
So, that was it.
Well, actually, we need to hear back.
Is there any other old business before we go on to the audit?
No,
Oh,
actually,
Mr.
I would-
Chair.
Mr. Chair, we'd like to do the new business for the capital academy because Mr. May has to leave.
Yes,
We're gonna-
that's what I said.
When he leaves,
Continue.
we no
Ask-
longer
make sure
have
that-
quorum to answer that.
So we'll go to that one.
Can we ask to get an update next meeting on that issue?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Well, meaning that, are we going to just get a hard no again? Or are we going to, is it actually to be heard by the commission? Because that's what we directed. It wasn't to go to the attorney. So this is a request for payment, and it needs to be heard by the commission.
I would suggest the commission make a motion or send notice to the commission that they would like it heard, or can attend a commission
That-
meeting.
We've
That's-
already voted to do it. I think we need to send it to the commission directly.
Yeah, that's what
to
we-
say, or to the chairman, to say, please consider and give us an answer on this.
Okay, yeah, that's what we did last time. I didn't vote, but that is the vote we had, was to send it directly to the commission.
Okay, well, I mean, we just need to make sure it gets there.
Do we
Okay.
need to do another motion?
No.
Okay.
Okay. How do we make sure it gets there, though? I mean, my assumption was it went there immediately until I talked to the city clerk, and so she had not heard of it.
If the chairman gets in writing to me that it's a request specifically for the Board of Commissioners to consider this, then I will forward it to, the city attorney and city clerk and city manager who go over that agenda with the mayor, and ultimately it's between the city manager and mayor whether that or anything else gets included on the agenda, but they will have it in front of them and know that it's been requested. That's what I can do. It's over my pay grade.
Yeah.
Are there any other old business? And then going to the Capital Academy.
We're going to combine these? Okay. Jacqueline Perry of the Capitol Academy is requesting modifications of standards to multiple requirements contained within Article 19.06 daycare centers, nurseries, kindergartens. Modifications requested relate to Articles 19.061, 19.064, and 19.065. This request is for the property located at 313 Capitol Avenue, which can be more specifically identified as PBA map number 062-31-09-007.00. And Jacqueline Perry of the Capitol Academy is also requesting a conditional use permit in accordance with Article 4.41 to operate a daycare at the property located at 313 Capitol Avenue. The property can be more specifically identified as PBA map number 062-31-09-007.00.
Thanks, Vicki. Evening, everybody. Yes, Ms. Perry's been operating the Capitol Academy at 317 Capitol Avenue for 7-8 years, and prior to that, previous operators have used it for decades. This is an attempt by her to suffice additional demand for childcare services by purchasing the property next door and expanding her conditional use, and then state licenses to operate next door. That requires from us this conditional use, and because of some of the specific requirements referenced in my staff report, also a modification of standards because she cannot meet some of those requirements. If you notice from my staff report, what they are a whole series of strange sort of area requirements that we have for daycares. There's a state agency that has child care professionals that has standards for such things that regulates this. We are not that. We're land use planners. And I'll tell you honestly that this is one of those things that our intention, since we're here talking about the future development code this evening as well, is that language is likely not going to be in the version that comes to you all. We will just reference that daycares need to meet the state requirements, since neither I nor you all, I assume, have expertise in that detailed part of it. So what we're trying to do tonight is ask for a modification of standards of the few things that Ms. Perry's new facility would not meet in order to take over operation there. And increase the capacity. The state, she has met all of their requirements, and I believe they've approved her in the combination of the two facilities under one license to operate with up to 39 kids. So I've recommended approval on both. The only negative finding, as you may have seen from the conditional use, was that need to get this modification of standards, but I'm recommending approval since the state agency that actually is tasked with knowing how to regulate such uses has already approved it. I'll also just add on the side for her particular case that being in an urban environment, some of these requirements, like a lot of things from our existing code, really make more sense in a suburban environment. And when we try to apply them in dense urban areas, it gets very difficult for folks sometimes. So that's one of the issues. But any questions you have?
Any questions for staff?
No, just a matter to speed this up, Eric. What page was the findings of fact on? Is it on, since we have combined these?
Yeah, I didn't print that.
Oh, never mind, I found them.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I was gonna make a motion. I said, oh, yeah, I gotta have it.
Yes, I've got them. Okay.
Do y'all have any questions?
No.
I don't have to for that.
Everybody, do you have any questions for staff?
No, I do not. I would say I would speak in support of the recommendations.
Okay.
Yes.
Does anyone in the audience have questions for staff? All right. Thank you. If the applicant can present their request.
I'm Jacqueline Perry, and I agree with everything Eric says, that the state has regs. We go by those regs.
Great testimony.
Perfect. Well said.
Always better to quit when you're ahead.
That's right.
Does commission members have questions for the applicant?
No, we do not.
Mayor Manning?
I do not. Thank you.
Did you, Mike? I do not. Does anyone in the audience have questions for the applicant? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on the request? But, thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. So then, do I need a motion to approve or deny?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion first to close public hearing. Second, to adopt the findings of facts by staff on the last page of the report. Conditional use is granted only to Jacqueline Perry, DBA, the Capitol Academy. Conditional use is permitted only at 313 Capitol Avenue, and the conditional use is not transferable. And I'd further like to make a motion to approve the staff recommendations for both requests.
I'll second.
Any questions before you vote? Madam Secretary?
Mr. Lusher?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel? Oh, he's not here. Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Nichols?
Yes.
Chairman Stewart?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Let's see, they need to- And then, let's see, well, thank you very much. And let's see, we'll go on to, what is it, the audit presentation? Eric, ready for the audit presentation?
I can read this.
Actually, Eric, which
I just
parts do we
wanted to
need to
try
have a
to
quorum
warm
for?
up.
Audit presentation and,
We've got during consideration of fees, and then he's gonna do an update on the,
we just need to be able to vote on a couple more things first before he walks away.
Okay.
So what are the requirements do we
They're
need?
gonna want you to vote on
Oh.
the fees.
All right.
but they said a consideration, are we officially voting on the things? or-
Yes, you need to vote on the fees.
Glad you come.
Okay.
Now, I'm gonna give Mr. McLeod a break here. Unless the commission has questions, I don't know that we need to have a quorum for the presentation. It's in writing.
Right.
I think we've got
I
what Charles
downloaded
T.
it.
Mitchell says, so if, unless there's questions for him, I think he can submit his document, and be able to go on his merry way.
That, without any presentation?
Correct, unless he wishes to make it.
Do you wish to make one?
No. Pretty much like last year, I don't want to waste your time. You do need to approve it, so that is the only thing.
Okay. A motion to approve.
A motion to approve the audit.
Second.
Any discussion before we vote? Madam Secretary?
Hold on just a minute, y'all. Going too fast for me. Mr. Lusher?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr.
Mills.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Nichols?
Yes.
Chairman Stewart?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank you,
thank you,
Greg.
seriously.
Thank you.
I guess.
Here's something else. The fees.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah, fees and then,
Okay.
Ready on the fees?
Fees.
Yes, we have fees. Do we need to know what?
Yes, I've submitted you some proposed updated fees, the fee schedule for the commission and its associated board. The Board of Zoning Adjustments has not been updated in literally decades. I've compared the proposed fees and our previous fees to several surrounding communities, and what I've given you is comparable numbers, albeit the one thing that we did make an attempt to do compared to some of the other fee structures that communities were using is to keep it simple. Some of them used, a fee plus a per lot or per acreage thing on some of the zone changes and plats, and it just gets complicated. So we thought it was easy enough to keep it simple, but that's what we've proposed. Staff has looked over it. We feel good about it.
Does fee schedule apply to the county and city? Or is this just a city?
This is the fee schedule that applies to all of the fees that are actually planning commission fees.
Okay, so it's in total?
So what's unusual about our arrangement is, our permit fees and those kind of things go to the city or the county. But when you file a plat or development plan or items that come before this board or items that go before the Board of Zoning Adjustments, those fees actually pass through the city and county and come to the planning commission account. Just another unique thing about how we do things in this town. So, yeah, so it's just you all's fees that you control.
Okay.
More question?
I've got none.
Mike? No. Reed?
Nope, good.
Mary?
No questions. Thank you.
Do we need a motion to officially to approve? Okay.
Yes, sir.
We need a motion to approve.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the updated fee schedule.
Michael second.
Mike?
Yep.
Second from Mike.
Okay.
Any questions before we vote?
Mr. Lusher?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Nichols?
Yes.
Chairman Stewart?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And then, so, for the calendar update?
Sure, yeah. All right, well, I'll introduce Andy Yingling. He's our project lead on the development code rewrite portion of what we've been working on this last better part of the decade now. It seems like. Actually, so we're, as I've mentioned, I think, last month, and Andy will probably touch on that. I'm trying to recall from going through the slides if it came up, but we're having,
Eric Winston. Ed, since we now no longer have to have a quorum, do we need to dismiss the meeting to listen to the update, or?
well, we can listen to the update, there's no vote.
There's no
Right.
vote.
Okay, so it doesn't negate.
We don't have to
Okay.
have a quorum for that,
Okay.
And,
in my opinion.
and any reports of standing committees special, there, none?
No.
Okay.
We'll be having an open house the end of the month, 26th, at the library, 5:30. And what we share with the public at that time is going to be something very similar, if not the same as this. We'll probably alter it a little bit for public consumption, and turn some of these slides probably into some stations at that open house to kind of have people get around and interact with us with additional questions. But I think this will be a good way for us to share with you all and any of the public watching kind of what we've been working on without expecting somebody to read through a 400-page draft document of development code. So, yeah, that's where we are. We are hard at it to have this done by, the middle of the summer, and I think it's really starting to come together. Just in the last month, we started sharing certain sections of this with noted stakeholders, utility companies. Just today, sent a couple sections back to Public Works and the county engineering folks. So make sure we get all those folks in the discussion. But I'll leave it at that and let Andy take it over, and then just be happy to answer any questions you have for him or me. I think this will be really useful.
Appreciate it, Eric. Thank you for having us this evening. My name is Andy Yingling. I'm with the company McBride Dale Clarion. We were the ones that worked with you all on distilled together the comprehensive plan. So this is a continuation of that, updating the zoning code, zoning regulations, development code, not only for the city, but also for the county, combining the documents into one, making sure that everything is covered, there's no duplications, and that also involves the subdivision regulations. So as Eric said, we're hard at work moving through everything. So I've got kind of a brief presentation. I'll kind of go over the background of how we've gotten to where we are, and then kind of walk through kind of the overview of each one of the chapters or articles, kind of generally what the updates are and the reasons why. So this overall shows kind of the process that we started with as far as the zoning code goes. So we started back in 2024, in September, initiating that project. In October of that year, we started the diagnosis. So what that was is, hopefully you got a chance to take a look at this. It was the just basically going through the existing zoning codes, not only the cities, but the counties and the subdivision regulations, and posing recommendations that we saw, not necessarily going line by line and putting what we recommend the change be, but overall just the general topics, getting agreements with the city and county on that document to see, this is generally what we're looking at updating, and kind of that's the foundation of us doing the drafting. So we started drafting about February of last year, so we've been in drafting mode for about a year now. As you can imagine, with taking a look at two different codes and two different subdivision regulations, we want to make sure that we're going through with a fine-tooth comb, making sure that we're not, duplicating efforts, but also because there are so many different built environments that we want to be sensitive to, making sure that everything that we draft does take into consideration everything. So As Eric mentioned, I think our plan is to hopefully wrap this up in the summer of this year, so there's going to be likely a lot of text coming at you here in the next couple weeks or months for review. So kind of some big picture items. Really what we're looking at doing is, with the effort and the outreach that went into the comprehensive plan update, making sure that the zoning code really speaks to that and is an implementation tool for that plan. Not only that, but just making sure that the regulations that are in place actually do make sense for the city and the county and the number of areas, whether it's the urban environment, suburban, or rural, and we'll get into a little bit of that detail. Simplifying things that are in the current code. I know that there was mention on the case that was before you tonight that there are some regulations that might be outdated or standards that might be outdated, or it might be another entity that's charged with really having that purview of that, that particular regulation. So making sure that we address each one of those individually. Introducing a use table for what all the uses are that are permitted within the city and county and what districts they are, so you can look at it in one clean look through. So really just trying to simplify the code, make sure that things are easily understood, not only from staff, planning commission, board of commissioners, but also for applicants and property owners as well. So really looking at it from a number of different lenses. So this is not just a rewrite, it's a policy modernization that really makes the code easier to administer, easier to explain, and more defensible. So when we looked at Distilled Together, there were three kind of main highlighted areas that this code kind of focuses on. Housing and neighborhoods being the first, so introducing the ability for there to be those missing middle. Thank you. The missing middle housing types, whether it's duplexes, townhomes, small multifamily, so really not having such a large emphasis on single family and really addressing the need for housing in appropriate ways. Adding in things such as accessory dwelling units, having there be standards for infill development, so taking a look at the context of where that new construction might take place, rather than just meeting the base standards, making sure that it meets the base standards, but also fits into the context of the built environment. And then addressing larger multifamily developments based off of character areas. So in the subdivision regulations right now, it talks about the rural, suburban, and urban areas. As far as sub-areas go, we're looking to propose to bring those through to the zoning code to help allow for different uses such as multifamily that might make sense in a different built form in the urban fabric than it would in the suburban or rural area. So that's just one example. And we'll talk about a couple other examples, but I know that one's here specifically for housing. Focus on economic development and mix of uses, so really introducing that mixed use area and allowing for the commercial and business districts to be flexible to the point where they're able to bring on new and modern uses without compromising adjacent land uses that might not necessarily be the right fit. So introducing things such as buffering standards, performance standards, items that the board and staff can look at to make sure that the use that's being proposed does fit appropriately at that particular location. So really making sure that this zoning code is context sensitive. And then one of the big iterations that we've heard is really maintaining and preserving the rural areas and the environmental protections. So looking at the agricultural districts, and I know the land use code called for farms and natural landscapes. So making sure that those are carried through into the zoning code and the development code itself. And then, as I mentioned, bringing in and carrying over the character designations or sub areas from the subdivision regulations to really make sure that any new development or, say, accessory structures, in a rural area makes sense, whereas it wouldn't necessarily make sense in a downtown. So having those character designations really allows for the ability for regulations and the allowance of things based off of their built environment. As I mentioned, kind of clear buffering and landscaping requirements between incompatible uses to really work on different tools that can be introduced to really preserve the rural and natural areas. So the structure of the code, we're proposing a pretty significant change to, so I can walk you through that. So this is the existing structure of both the city and the county's code. So you can see that the chapters, there's different chapters that are involved in each one of them. You know, some of them are the same, some of them are slightly varied, some of them apply specifically to the city versus the county. So our fun job in this drafting is to make sure that nothing gets lost and that everything gets preserved, but then making sure that things speak to each other for both the city and the county and being sensitive to each one of those. So what we did kind of in the first step was look at each one of these chapters, see which ones kind of marry together, and looking at how that can be restructured into a code format that makes sense, kind of walking somebody through a development process or looking to do improvements on their property and walking through the code that way. It's a little bit small, but basically what we've got is the general provisions would be kind of the first article that kind of outlines the legalities of the code itself, what the code can and cannot do. Then talking about the zoning districts, establishing those and what the purpose statements are for each one of the districts. That way everybody kind of has a very clear understanding as far as what the district is, but also what the general purpose of that district is. And the purpose statements we based off of kind of a combination of the existing purpose statements for each one of the districts to preserve that, and then seeing which future land use types were recommended in the comprehensive plan and making sure that, you know, if a district makes sense and is consistent with that future land use category, that those two really talk together. And then going into all of the uses, and I'll kind of walk through each one of these, but you walk through the uses and then you walk through each one of the chapters that have to do with the development standards, whether it's landscaping, signage, parking, loading, circulation, and then going into kind of the tools, whether it's a planned development or a special district. I know that there's a number of different special districts that we'd be looking to retain. Specific chapter for administration and authority, so that's where, you know, all the roles and responsibilities of either your board or the Board of Adjustment or staff's responsibility or the Board of Commissioners, you know, what their purview is as it relates to the zoning code. And then going into the subdivision regulations as well, one thing that is, this structure has changed a little bit as we've been going through, but in general, it's kind of this walkthrough that we're looking to propose. Zoning district framework, so we notice that there is a number of similar districts. There are some districts that are both within the city and the county, but those don't always align cleanly. So making sure that we are addressing those appropriately. The district intent statements, as I mentioned, making sure that those are consistent with distilled together. So we would be looking for, or we're proposing the consolidation of some of the districts that are very, very similar in nature, where they might not make sense to have two different districts. Doing a district equivalency table to basically show this is what the existing district is as it stands right now. This is what the district equivalency would be for what's being proposed. That way, you know, if you're in one district, you can see that it's the same, but it's just a different name. And kind of showing that strong narrative to how each one of these districts relates to the comprehensive plan. So for example, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, so the AG district is compatible with both the city and the county. We'd be looking to rename that as the Farms and Natural Landscape District, consistent with the comprehensive plan's future land use category. The residential districts, you can see that with the city, you know, the RA district and the RB district are both very similar in nature. So having that be, or proposing it as a single district, the RL district, a residential low density. So you can kind of see how the residential districts have been a little bit more consolidated to be low density, traditional, a flex being one or two family and kind of that missing middle, and then a mixed density, which would be kind of a combination of all, including multifamily. So those would be the existing RL and RH districts. Again, I want to make sure that we know that this is all draft language, it's all proposed, no decisions are being made. This is all just kind of walking through the work that we've done with staff in coordinating all of this effort.
Do you have one? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have one question before we move on.
Absolutely.
I forget. In your residential districts, do you not have any zoning for high density?
So the high density would be that residential mixed density. And then
Okay.
when we look at the individual types of, say, multifamily, whether it's a small scale, like a 3 to 5 unit, or a large scale where it's 30-plus units.
Okay.
That's where those character designations come into play, and I'll get into that in a minute. But basically saying, a 30-plus unit multifamily really should kind of fit this mold in the downtown versus, if it's in a suburban area, so kind of going at it that way.
Okay.
When you say, how many fewer districts are you talking about? Are you consolidating, half of them, or how many are you hoping to eliminate?
So this is really the list of where that reduction takes place. And really, it's primarily within the residential districts, I would say. The RA and RB districts, we'd be looking to consolidate into the RL district, residential low density. Residential flex, that's proposed to be that special residential district, and then the RS district. So those would be ones that are more kind of a transition itself, whether it's the single or two-family districts. And then residential mixed density, that's where we'd be looking to consolidate the residential low density and high density that's in the current code to basically mix the two densities. And then, with that as a tool, when we get into the use table, you're able to see, how multifamily would be permitted with standards, which I'll get into, or conditional. So kind of breaking it down that way. This is just and I won't read this exactly, but just to kind of show what the language would look like as far as what the existing purpose statement is for that RC district, and what it would be looking to be considered for the RT, or the residential traditional district. So again, that's kind of that urban residential area. So the communal character designations, I think, is going to be an area where it allows for, that ability to really plan for and have different standards based off of the built environment. I think that's one of the things that staff and you all have run into, is trying to make sure that we've got one unified code, but understanding that there are so many different areas that come into play. So this is just a tool to be able to have different standards as we walk through. And I've got some examples as we go in, but again, the existing code kind of calls for a one-size-fits-all dimension standards, whether it's, property within a suburban area or a rural area. So this kind of gives that ability to treat them a little differently and be sensitive to the context that is surrounding them. There are tools that are in the current code, whether it's an overlay or a plan unit development, that can be used to achieve some of those context sensitivity areas, but outside of going through that zone change process or, adding an overlay, it's kind of, like I mentioned, a one-size-fits-all. So these urban, suburban, and rural character areas really allow for there to be additional tool that we can specify, say for accessory structures, for example. It might make sense for there to be a large accessory structure in a rural area, or it be in the front yard in some scenarios, whereas in an urban context, that's not necessarily the case. So when we get into accessory structure standards, we're able to call out these urban, suburban, or rural areas and kind of have different standards tied to them for a similar zoning district. And then carrying over the map that's in the subdivision regulations themselves. So everything in green would be that R designation, the yellow suburban, and then the red would be that urban designation. This is straight out of the subdivision regulations. I think it will speak to it. And then as we're going through the subdivision regulations updates, all of these character designations would carry over into that as well. So just kind of a walkthrough, and I talked briefly about the overall structure, but this kind of gets into some of the main topic areas that I think the high-level approach is, rather than go through a line by line and be here for 24 hours or over a year. So the existing uses, you have a very, very long list of uses. They get very specific. So adding a little bit of flexibility to that without opening up the floodgates to every single use. So going through that very systematically, and that's one of the first articles we look at, because it is kind of an ongoing conversation that we've had with staff throughout this process as we're contemplating what uses make sense in different areas. And then introducing tools such as, the permitted with standards, conditional uses with standards, so something that would still have to come before you all, but the applicant would have to demonstrate that they meet certain predetermined criteria in order to be eligible to come before you all for a conditional use. So really taking away some of that ambiguity and making sure that the process is cleanly spelled out. Identifying new and emerging uses, removing antiquated uses that, aren't being used, and really making sure that everything is going together. So really providing more predictability, fewer discretionary determinations, and clearer expectations for the community. So this is just a quick snapshot of the use table that would be built out. So each one of the kind of aqua-colored headings is the use type itself, so the top being agricultural uses, then residential uses, public and institutional, commercial. What's cut off from this, because it is a lengthy list, would be industrial uses, accessory uses, and temporary uses. So all of that in one easy to look at table. So if an applicant says, I want to open up, we'll use a daycare for example, they can see what districts it's permitted in, which districts it's conditional in, so you don't have to flip between each one of the chapters that have to do with that particular district. You're able to see, okay, I'm permitted within District X, Y, and Z, now I can look for properties in that area. Or, if there's somebody marketing their property, then they've got one in that, commercial area, commercial district, they now know what all uses they can, advertise the building is available for.
What does it mean by permitted by right? You mean it's already been permitted?
So permitted by right would mean that it's something that can be approved at a staff level. Permitted with standards can be approved at a staff level, but as you see on that very right-hand column, the additional standards has a hyperlink to specific criteria that applicant would need to meet in order for it to be permitted. And the purpose behind that is just to make sure that, a use that might have some externalities does fit into that context. So it might be, it needs to be located on an arterial road or a major connector. That way it's not going through a neighborhood. It might be something where it has specific hours of operation that, help to make it fit into the neighborhood itself. Conditionally permitted, obviously coming before you all, and then conditional with standards, it comes before you all, but there's still that set criteria that needs to be met. If it's not met, the applicant can request a waiver or modification from you all, but it's really those checks that make sure that the areas around it are protected, but also allowing for there to be flexibility for uses to be able to locate on properties. And then blank would be prohibited. So this is something, and you can kind of see there's some red lines there. That's how we're working through. Eric and his staff, and then Autumn with the county and her staff are looking through these lists to make sure that this does not only capture what's existing and permitted, but where there might be opportunities to allow for additional uses. One of the things that we're always keeping in mind throughout this update, not only for the use table, but any other part of this drafting, is to really evaluate, are we creating any non-conforming situations? Are there going to be areas where, it's taking away something that's permitted right now and what that is going to do? So those are all considerations that we're taking. So it's a pretty comprehensive look through from all facets. So after Article 3, you get into Article 4, which is the dimensional and design standards. So that's your items as far as setbacks, building height. A lot of the things that we're working on with staff is really making sure that, it's not that one size fits all. There's the ability for there to be considerations for what the built context is. So, taking a look at the surrounding block, making sure that, if there's an infill property, that its setbacks meet the context of that strip. So you're able to kind of do those calculations and make sure that, those criteria are clearly spelled out for staff and the applicant or the builder, developer, whatever it might be. So setting up those provisions for infill development, putting everything in clean tables. That way it's all kind of in one fell swoop. So consistent with the use table, each one of the districts would have a column as far as what the setbacks are, what the minimum lot size would be. This is all in one section, so somebody's able to look pretty cleanly and see what their requirements would be for their particular lot. In addition to that, adding some general design standards, not necessarily, that it has to have cornice or this and that, but it's more kind of the building massing. One of the questions that always comes up is, I'm just doing, a small building addition, does the entire section apply to me? Do I have to meet all of the zoning criteria? So adding an applicability table that basically says, like on the left-hand column, it's the site and building improvement. So if somebody's just doing, a parking expansion of less than 10 spaces, do they need to bring their building up to the standards that are in here? You'd be able to look at this table and say, no, for a parking expansion of 10 spaces, this specific criteria would not necessarily apply to you unless you want to take it upon yourself to bring your building up to these standards. And then we get into Articles 5 through 8, which is the parking, landscaping, lighting, and signage. So bringing in more graphics, again, taking out language that's outdated, outdated sign code structure, and adding in and spelling out cleanly what the sign size could be, what the setbacks need to be, landscaping, all of the different sign types, giving examples of those. One of the big items that we've heard from the comprehensive plan and working with staff is parking standards and modernizing those, moving away from the model where each individual use has to have, one space per every 500 square feet. A lot of that leads to overparking and, large seas of surface parking. So really right-sizing that, whether it's eliminating parking standards or there being some type of checks and balances where, the applicant has to demonstrate that they're providing appropriate parking for their particular use, whether that's through a parking study or demonstrating, the number of employees, whatever that might look like. So those are different things that are a part of this consideration and making sure that it's appropriate for the city and the county. Again, noting that, parking in an urban area like the historic downtown is going to be different than a greenfield development site where they're able to park. So not making it prohibitive for a use that wants to go in a downtown and provide this parking. They're likely going to request a variance for that anyway. So making sure that it actually is appropriate for development that we see or change of occupancies that go into the city and county. Another item is a standalone outdoor lighting article, bringing in some of the dark sky requirements to allow for there to be, or prevent the fact of light trespassing or light pollution. So bringing in requirements for there. And that would be kind of a standalone reference chapter, and having applicability standards for, this would apply for non-residential properties, and the intent is that it, again, prevents the light glare onto residential properties or adjacent properties that are less of intense use. So landscaping and buffering, we're working with Human Nature, who is also involved in the comprehensive plan, so they've got a pretty good pulse on everything that went through that process. Introducing buffering standards and really outlining what those buffers should look like between incompatible uses. So adding in that there would need to be, significant buffering between an industrial use and one that's, less intense. And then similar to what we saw in the building design and dimension standards, that applicability table. So I'm doing a building addition. Do I now need to have my property meet all of the landscaping requirements? Well, you look at this table and you're able to see, I'm doing an addition of 25%. I don't necessarily need to install additional landscaping to meet the code. But if it's, an additional threshold, then yes, there needs to be compliance for that particular item. So really spelling out cleanly, that way staff, the applicant, and the commission know what sections of the requirements and the regulations do apply for that particular property and that particular proposal. Same thing with signage, adding a chart there to show these are the different sign types that are permitted within the city and county based off of the use itself. So this table sets up pretty similar to that use table. And then each one of the different sign types, there is a table that basically shows how many signs you'd be permitted, what the sign size would be allowed at, maximum height, illumination, setbacks for each one of the individual sign types, and then graphics or images to demonstrate, this is an example of what this would look like. That way, again, for the applicant, they're able to see, okay, this is the type of sign I'm looking for, this is what my regulations would be, this is where it needs to be on the property, to really kind of allow it to be a walkthrough for them. Again, outdoor lighting, having regulations and having provisions to spell out cleanly why they're there, the purpose behind them, and, you know, things like, you know, the pole height or where it's mounted on the building, what that height would be, that it needs to be full cutoff and not something where it's going to have that light trespassing. If it's not a cutoff light, you know, that it needs to be, you know, certain height that is more of a decorative illumination. So really having standards in there for, you know, to avoid people over illuminating their property. Plan development in special districts, so spelling out cleanly the process behind a plan unit development or a plan development, what that approval process looks like, what type of additional requirements go into that, or that additional criteria that needs to be considered by staff or by the planning commission or the board of commissioners when they're doing their review. So clearly spelling out that approval criteria, you know, spelling out any criteria for modifications. You know, the plan development or that development proposal gets approved. As the developer is digging into kind of the engineering details of the plan, they see that, you know, a building needs to shift X amount of feet. You know, does that trigger it to be something that comes before the planning commission or the board of commissioners, or is it something that, you know, can be approved at a staff level, but having that criteria very cleanly spelled out so there's no question as far as, you know, which process does this need to go through. Special districts, those are ones like the historic district, your central business district, the landfill district in the county. We're looking at those remaining intact, not really looking to modify the language unless it's, you know, items that are conflicting, and then putting it into the structure that's consistent with the development code that we're drafting up in that organization structure. So as you can see here, same kind of table as the zoning district table. You're able to see on the right-hand columns, those were the existing districts as they're currently in your code, and then what the name would be and the designation would be. So it's really a one-for-one for each one of the plan development districts, as well as those special districts. Article 13 would be administration and procedures, so cleanly spelling out what the standards are, the roles and responsibilities, as I mentioned, for each one of the approval bodies or staff, and then the criteria and process that each one of those different application types would need to walk through. So all of that in one spot, that way you don't have to hunt through, whether it's a different section or a different chapter, all of that is in one place. And again, we like tables, so having each one of the different procedures, what the reference is as far as each one of those section references will show you what the application requirements are, what drawings are required, what the process is as far as, you know, step 1, step 2, step 3, and then which bodies are the reviewing agency, whether there's a hearing that's involved, and then who the decision-making body is. And then if there is an A, that shows which body would be subject to an appeal decision. We're still underway, kind of drafting up additional language for parking, loading, and circulation. We are looking at introducing riparian area, waterway, and wetland protection overlays. So that's something that is still kind of being discussed between staff and human nature and us to make sure that we're really understanding what that would look like. So there's more information to come on that. I think we want to make sure that we've got kind of that cleanly spelled out and we're understanding what, you know, benefits or things that, you know, might not be intended, really making sure that we fully understand what that chapter needs to look like based off of the direction we heard from the comprehensive plan. And then we are working through right now the subdivision regulations. As I mentioned, each one of those sub areas is in there. There's a lot of redundant language. So the subdivision regulations, I think, are like 200, 300 pages. I think at this point in time, just getting rid of redundant language and regulations that are in there more than twice, I think it's down to 160 pages. So we're able to, it's interesting to see kind of what needs to be in the subdivision regulations versus what is actually handled by a different agency. I know in the case that came before you tonight, it's talked about, you know, the state having regulations as far as daycares. Same kind of thing with the subdivision regulations. It might not necessarily be something that is spelled out in the subdivision regulations, but, you know, another agency has specific regulations. So linking it to the agency that actually does oversee that particular set of standards.
Riparian area?
Yeah.
What is riparian?
Yes. So anywhere that is along a waterway.
Okay.
Yep. So whether it's a blue line stream, so making sure that, you know, if there's work that takes place within that stream area, that it's done appropriately and what the impacts might be, and making sure that those are all curbed. I won't read all through this, but it's basically just kind of showing a before and after comparison of what the existing code challenges are, and then kind of our remedy to address those scenarios that we're working through with staff on each one of those items. But overall, kind of creating that unified city-county code for zoning, development, and subdivision regulations, a new district framework and character areas that really speak more to the built environment and what the goals and vision are of the city and county, making the code predictable and easy to navigate with the use tables, with the dimensional standard tables, really outlining everything very cleanly. That way, if you've never opened up a zoning code before, it's not intimidating. You're able to easily understand it. So that's, I think, one of the big additions to this proposal would be adding that missing middle for housing flexibility, and again, doing the context-sensitive development and design standards, whether that's the infill standards or you know, looking at the context surrounding the development proposal and making sure that the application does apply appropriately. And what stayed the same, the core protections of the neighborhoods in each one of the commercial districts where there are protections that are in place. We want to make sure that those are preserved, and also ensuring that we're not creating non-conforming situations that are unnecessary. Allowing for there to be conditional use oversight for higher impact uses, so whether that's additional standards or cleanly outlining what the review criteria can help to guide the approval bodies and review authorities. And then again, the historic floodplain and environmental protections are remaining the same. Typically, we try to stay pretty hands-off on special districts that were really designed specifically for that area. You know, if there are things that staff or, you know, the committee or council have noticed, you know, we'll look to address them that way, but, you know, we're not going to look at kind of starting from scratch. They've been working. Let's fix what isn't working and not fix what is. So the next steps, as Eric mentioned, we do have on Thursday, February 26th, we're looking to do an open house, again, a presentation similar to this, with a couple activities around the room to get additional input from residents, business owners, stakeholders, whoever it may be, to make sure that we are having a code draft that you all will see that really is reflective of the entire community. So that'll be 5:30 to 7:30 at the Paul Sawyer Public Library. So we're hoping to get the word out and get as many people there and get as much input as we can.
Are you gonna have the same presentation for them that you're showing now, or is that more?
I think the intent is that it would be very similar, probably cater it more towards the general public. That way, you know, we're not going into a lot of technicalities, but making sure that we're understanding the audience. But yeah, same kind of thing, just high level, not going word by word in the actual code itself. Yeah.
And when are you all hoping to present to us, and then once we approve it, it would then go to the city and the county? Are you all hoping with the July meeting?
The hope is to have it to the legislative bodies by July.
So go to us at the June meeting?
So preferably June, could be July, because then, you know, if you all were to approve something at the July meeting, we could get it to a late July fiscal quarter, Board of Commissions.
Right.
But yeah, that probably June meeting is really our hard and fast goal, so that we can get it to those bodies in late July.
And are you all planning this one major meeting for the public, or would there probably, if there's a lot of response, possible other, if the public wants to follow up, would there be another?
Well, obviously, you all would have a public hearing.
Right.
I would imagine that as we get close to having a final final-ish draft prior to the public hearing. We'll probably do something.
I think that makes
We
sense.
haven't really talked about what that looks like yet, but yeah, we'll do something else. And as we get this first one scheduled, we'll probably start sharing some more information on the project website, which is still distilled together.
So
And-
the public can go on and get their.
Exactly. And then obviously when we get something like a full draft really ready for public consumption, that'll be available for everybody as well.
Can we, Joe, any questions?
Good.
Tim? Well, thank you. Is there any that you'd like to add or anything?
No, I probably went into a lot of detail, so I appreciate your time. Sorry if it was long-winded, but wanted to make sure that you guys had information to know what's coming in the pipeline. And if you have questions for us, we're here, or you can relay it to staff, and we'll make sure to get you what you need.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Logan, any motion for, that?
We cannot, Mr. Chairman. we cannot.
That, is there any other business? Motion to adjourn?
We can't, that could,
Yeah.
we were adjourned, Mr. May left the room.
Right. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.